In this segment, I'll talk about adding fractions with like and different denominators using the same graphing concept that I was using in the previous video. As in the last video, I want to put the 1/2 fraction, so up 1 and over 2, and I connect it with a line so that all these things on the red line are going to be my 1/2 equivalent fractions. So there's my 1/2 point. Now, if I take and I want to make a segment with fixed length, and I want to make a length of 1 because it's 1 high, so I'm going to say a segment of 1, and now I can then drop that down so I can see that it actually lines up exactly on the x-axis. I can see that it's 1 high. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy that. So I'm just going to go over here and copy, and then I'm going to go to here and I'm going to paste it, and now I'm just going to paste that on top. And so now I have a point up here at up 2 and over 2. So if I take 1/2 and I add it to 1/2, I'm going to get 2 halves, or 2 over 2. And if I now draw my line between my 2 points, here's from my 0 to my 2 over 2 point, we can now see, I'll change the color, we can see now that's going to be 1/2 plus 1/2, that's going to be my 1 line. And I can write 1/2, which is this first line from the bottom to the red, plus 1/2, which is from the red to the green. 1/2 plus 1/2 gives me a total of 2 halves, and we can get our dot up here at 2 up and 2 over. And I can see that 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 2 halves, which is 1 whole. However, I can see a possible problem. If I go up 2 and over 4, and I put my dot on my red line, remember, was my 1/2 line, and so 2 over 4 is 1/2. So here's my 2 over 4 dot at point D, and I want to add a 1/2 line, which we said is this line up here. So I'm just going to take this line and copy it and paste it. And so I've taken my 1/2 line from here and pasted it here. And it seems to me as though if I take my 1/2, which is my 2/4, and I add 1/2, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to add my 1/2. According to this, it looks like I should be at up 3 and over 4. But we just got finished saying that 2/4 plus, which is a half, plus a half was equal to 2 over 2, which is 1 whole. This should line up on my green line. I have a problem, because right now it looks like it should equal 3/4. And symbolically, 2 over 4 plus 1 over 2, 2 plus 1 is 3, and 4 plus 2 is, well, 6. Now what do I do? If it's 3 over 6, but 3 over 6 is one of these, is right there. That's another half. Or if I start with a half and I add a half, I can't end up at 3 over 6, so that can't be right. And if I've got 2/4 and I add a half, it looks to me as though, according to this, it should be 3/4. What do we have to do to solve our problem? We know that 2/4, we know that 1/2 plus 1/2 gave me 2 halves, and that worked. So 1/2 plus another 1/2 straight up and down gave my answer, which was 2 halves, which should give me 2 halves, which is 1 whole, which is what we should get. Over here, if I took my 2/4 though and added my 1/2, it looks like I should get either 3/6, which would leave me right here on the same line. That doesn't add up vertically. Or 3/4, but that doesn't work right either. A half plus a half should work. Notice that I'm talking straight up and down line here. If I want to add a half to this, I need to add a straight up and down line. So here is my half, the distance from here to here. If I copy this and put it on top, where does that get me? So here I have my 2/4, that's my point right there, 2/4, and I want to add another 2/4, which is another name for saying a half. So if I change this to 2/4, that'll get me up to 4/4. So as long as I'm adding straight up, I'm okay. If I want to take this half piece and take this half and move it and stick it onto someplace else. That doesn't work because now they're not straight up and down lines. I have to add, remember we say when we talk about adding fractions, we have to add the same common denominators to add them, or the same kinds of things. When we're adding anything, we have to make sure we're adding the same kinds of things. Ones with ones, tens with tens, halves with halves, quarters with quarters. So I can't just stick two quarters and a half together. They're not the same kinds of things. They're on different parts of my graph. So if I want to take this and add another half to it, that's going to give me 2 quarters plus 2 quarters for a total of 4 quarters, which gives me back to the one line again. So I have to make sure that I'm adding straight up and down on the same line. So if I took this 1/2 from down here and I brought it up, whoops, that doesn't look very nice. If I took this 1/2 here and moved it up here and added the half straight above, we would get to that same 3/4 problem. But if we're adding 2 quarters and I change that 1/2 to 2 quarters, because 1/2 is the same thing as 2 quarters, now I can get my answer where I want it to be, all the way up to my 4 quarters. Let's try this question. 1/2 plus 1/3. So there's my green line, which is the 1/2 line, up 1 and over 2. And there's my 1/3 line, up 1 and over 3. We can see that the 1/3 is smaller than the 1/2. And if I want to put these two together, I can't drop a line down here because this is not lining up with this. Is there some way that I can get some point where the A and the C are on top of one another? So I go over here and I see, no, that doesn't, that's a funky fraction. That one looks nice. If I put a dot there, that looks like it might work. But then that's a funky fraction down there, so that doesn't work. That's funky, that's funky. Oh, that's a nice one. And that's a nice one. So if I was able to change my 1/2 line into something talking about sixths, and change my 1/3 line into something talking about sixths, I should be able to just stack those on top and get an answer for my question. My common denominator, therefore, is going to have to be sixths, because that's the place where I get my two lines lining straight up and down without having funky fractions. And I should get the right answer. Let's see what it looks like. So I can see my half fraction on my green line is going to be my 3/6. My 1/3 now is going to be my 2/6. There it is there. And I add these together. I should be able to just add the stacks together and get a total of 5/6. So here's my stack here. It's 2/6 high. I'm going to copy that and tack it on top. So here's my 1/3, which is 2/6, and I'm going to take that and I'm just moving it up here and tacking it on top of my 1/2. So 1/2 plus my 2/6 gets me a total up to 5/6. So 3/6 plus 2/6 gives me 5/6, and that's just going to equal to 5/6. So in order to be able to add fractions, if they're not the same thing, here's my 1/2 and here's my 1/3, but they're not lining up. I have to line them up vertically. In other words, I have to have some place that they're both going to be able to tack on top of one another, and that occurs at sixth, which is another way of talking about how to make common denominators between fractions. I multiply by my magic one known as 3/3 to change that to 3/6, because if this is 2 apart, another 2 apart, another 2 apart, that's why this line here is my 1/2 line. My 1/3 line, that's 3 apart and another 3 apart. I'm doubling it, so I'm going to multiply this one by 2/2. So there's my equivalent fractions. If I want to add fractions, I have to make sure they're vertically the same, or in this case, common denominators, and I can tack them on top, and I get my answer of 5/6. If I try to tack that someplace else, my answer is not going to work. If I took this question, I took my 1/2 line and I added it to this, I'm only going to get 3/2. And so that isn't going to work, because 1/2 plus 1/3 can't be 3/2. So I need to make sure that when I'm adding my pieces, I have to make sure that they line up on top of one another. So now I can add this 1/2 length to my green line, and now they're all lining up. I can total it up. Just another visual way of showing how you could add fractions, how common denominators might be thought of as far as visually connecting, and why we need common denominators before we can add them up. They have to be, to add up, they have to be on top of one another.